everybody. I'm Bob Wilson, singer-songwriter in San Antonio, Texas. Been writing songs since 1968. It's my 175th CD. I have 3,500 songs in my song catalog. Wow. I'll be 70 in October. I'm retired. I have an excellent memory, and I'm interested in a lot of history things. So I'm doing education videos for the people. I write them all, of course. This one's called "The Secrets of 1789 President George Washington." And first of all, America owes a lot to George Washington. He was, to the people that don't know, the younger people and things, George Washington, he's the one whenever we were part of the English colony in England, and England kept wanting taxes and taxes and taxes from us, and we wanted to be an independent country, and he's the one that led the Revolutionary Army and won against the British. He was our first president. He did 4 terms. I mean, of course, everybody knows about the cherry tree story. I did a lot of research on this stuff. Some of the stuff, I'm lazy. I don't like the stuff I do a lot of research. But I try to make it as accurate as I can, because, the historian said, well, Bob said it wrong. But what I understand, okay, I say he's a great president. He was the first 2 terms as president. There's a few things about George Washington you don't know. I'm not knocking the man, Okay, first of all, I believe, he was one of 6 children. His family owned a plantation in Virginia, and at 11 years old, he inherited slaves. So he was a slave owner. Okay, let's get out of the way. A few things you don't know. Okay, he after the Revolutionary War, all his soldiers who fought for the behalf of the United States were promised a section of land. As far as I can tell, a section of land is 660 acres. And George Washington, who's been a land surveyor since he was 16 years old, was in charge of rewarding his soldiers who fought so valiantly to win the United States independence. But he decided to take a little bit of land for himself before his soldiers who fought and died for this country. As far as my records go, he took 80,000 acres of the best land in the United States for himself before he gave out any land. Some politicians are like that. Okay. On Valley Forge, I've heard, because I'm into, I study about UFOs, Bigfoot, many subjects. All these, I don't put on my things that I wrote all these all for the videos. I wrote all them all. I did. I do research, and what I've heard, I have an excellent memory for my age. And at Valley Forge, even George Washington was seeing UFOs. So if people don't believe in UFOs, you got it right, but they're there. I mean, God made them too. They're protecting us for years. I think there's been battles. There's been battles between the good and the bad ETs, and thank God we have someone that some of the ETs on our side that's battled for us. But that's another story. Okay. Now, during President George Washington's presidency, after he became president, the United States was broke. We were broke. So George Washington and his Congress says, why don't we tax liquor, the whiskey tax? So he's for all the farmers, because these settlers who came, this United States, the settlers who came from Europe, Ireland, and those places were free to make moonshine, especially Tennessee, Virginia, Kentucky. They're known for the great water there, which makes some of the best moonshine in the world, of course. And so President Washington and his Congress said, let's tax whiskey, and the moonshiners were outraged. They 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 came and had called the Whiskey Rebellion. So what George Washington did, he sent the the troops that fought for the United States to make us independent against the American farmers, the poor American farmers and moonshiners, and most American moonshiners they have to make good liquor. Let's get this stuff straight. I know they were making some, there was bad liquor. Now I watch all the moonshiners, the ones on Discovery with Tim Smith and Tickle, the two best moonshiners ever. They would not. Let me tell a story real fast. Uh, Tim, the whole if you people who like the show Moonshiners, let me tell you a little history lesson here. Uh, Moonshining was something secretive. You did not do it. You did not tell anybody that you're a moonshiner. And Tim Smith grew up in moonshine. His father was a great moonshiner, and his I guess Tim's mother passed away, and so Tim's father come live on their ranch on their farm in Virginia, Climax, Virginia, and in a little trailer, and a man from New York came and was at in Climax, Virginia, and said, "Who makes the best moonshine around here?" Tim Smith. So he went up to Tim Smith and said, "Hey Tim, Tim Smith's also a volunteer fire chief in Climax for free. He fights fire for free." And what Tim Smith, I get long winded because I know some stuff the world should know. Okay, so they asked Tim Smith, says, "You're a fire chief. Do you think the people care of that you are also a moonshiner?" He says, "When they're getting their house burned down, they don't care if a moonshiner or whoever comes, as long as they get their house, they get saved, save their lives, and save their homes." In fact, the reason Tim Smith got into it was because his mother and a couple of his dogs were in their mobile home and it caught fire. Their home, I guess a mobile home. And fire departments got them out. One of his dogs died, and he was afraid of fire, but then became a fire chief. Okay, getting back to the story. So Tim Smith asked his dad. He says, "Hey, this guy from New York wants to make a thing about moonshiners." And his dad had been arrested before for moonshine, and his brother also been arrested for moonshine, but Tim Smith's never been arrested. And he says, "I don't know. Do you know this guy?" "I don't know this guy. He's from New York. He wants to make a documentary on moonshiners. And it's always been secretive. You don't write nothing down." And Tim Smith, they had their family recipe. And when the thing that changed Tim Smith's mind to become, to make that show, which Tim Smith, if you love the show Moonshiners, Tim Smith and Tickle are the originals. I love I love Mark and Digger, I love them all, but if it wasn't for Tim Smith, you would not have moonshiners on TV and worldwide right now. So what happened was Tim Smith was a fire chief, and he broke his arm. So he was at home resting, and he got on his about noon. He got on his beeper. There was an accident, and he went to the store. It was his dad. His dad had a heart attack, hit a tree, going to the convenience store, and died instantly. And so that's when Tim Smith said, "I'm going to do it. I want to risk everything. I'm going to get a hold of this guy from New York. I'm gonna make a TV show, and and they were after Tim. After the TV show came out, the FBI, everybody from the government come and they searched everything for Tim Smith. And Simpson was eating lunch, and they knocked on the door. "We got a search warrant. We're searching this place for liquor. We seen all this stuff on TV. You had liquor. You had over there." And Tim Smith, cool and calm, he says, "Federal officers, will you just take a seat? Let me finish my dinner first." Because they didn't find anything, and Tim's never been arrested for that. Okay, so make a long story short, George Washington, he sent federal troops against the moonshiners. 4 moonshiners were killed and 170 arrested, which is a federal crime. But some politicians, I'm not knocking nobody, but there's a lot of politicians with their hand out. When George, this is going to shock a lot of people. When our first famous president George Washington is on our money, we owe everything to him. But when he got out of office, guess what? I don't think they had a retirement for presidents in those days. So he got the best moonshiners in the country. Most of them came from Ireland, around there. And he told them, hey, I want to make a good moonshine. And they made George Washington rye whiskey. And so the president who sent federal troops against the farmers, and 4 moonshiners were killed, 170 were put in federal penitentiary, not local, federal. What I understand, he became the biggest moonshiner in the country. The president, and CNN or all these other places would love to hear that today. Okay, so he made 11,000 gallons of illegal George Washington rye whiskey, which what I understand in my research, today they're still making it legally. So that's ironic. But I'm gonna do another documentary on or another educational film on American moonshine and the United States government, because the government and moonshine, American farmers, have always been a thing. And not all politicians are crooked, but let me tell you, the illegal moonshine was being delivered to the White House with different presidents. Politicians looked the other way. The small counties and countries where moonshine was what they did to feed the family. The whole family were involved in moonshine. The little kids would look out for the revenuers, and then teach their kids to pass on, which is a dying thing now. The local sheriffs were getting a sack of money and to feed their families too. So and it's strange. And let me tell you, people don't realize that when 1920, when Prohibition came, moonshiners were real big. In fact, they supplied a lot of the whiskey for Al Capone and other things. But of course, in Al Capone days, not all, but a lot of the cops were on the take. And okay, so after the repeal of Prohibition, some of the crooked things says, hey, this is the United States. We really like getting paybacks and kickbacks from these moonshiners. Not all the politicians. There's great politicians in the United States, but you got to know the facts. I mean, okay. So let's make some of these. I tried to find, I don't know how many counties, but for every wet county, which is a county that you can sell liquor, there's dry county where you cannot sell liquor. It's still like that today. And so the politicians had to find ways to keep getting money, right? So I'm going to do another documentary on American moonshine and the United States government. That's about it. Recap, George Washington was a great president. We owe everything to George Washington. His money's on a thing, but he was, especially 2020 with all these talks about, which they should, about race and everything. I'm half American Indian, Cherokee Indian, and my father was full-blooded Cherokee Indian, and there's nothing good you can say about the American Indians. We got ripped off all the way around, but that's another story, and I've done documentaries on that before too. But George Washington was a great president, a great commander, but he was also a slave owner at 11 years old. He also turned the United States troops against his own people and killed four farmers and moonshiners who were just trying to feed their family. He put 170 moonshiners in federal prison, and then after he got out of office, after 8 years or so, whatever it was, he became the biggest moonshiners in the country. So, okay, Bob Wilson Nation, peace out. I like to hear comments about either good or bad. I've never had no bad comments on any of my 3,500 songs or my documentaries. I write all this stuff, and if people like them, I'm retired. If people like them, I do them. I got a cheap tape recorder, and I paid $1 for that, and I paid $25 for my tape recorder and my AT&T phone. I use that, so keep an old man off the street, right? Have a nice day.